So this one time, I had this big old restaurant disaster. You should have seen it. It was horrible. I mean, you know what? I'll tell you about it in the family chat with Matt. Let's get going. So there are a lot of people who I've heard have said that the Bible is boring. And obviously they haven't read everything in the Bible. They haven't read the entire thing because they didn't read 1st and 2nd Kings. They didn't read about all the bloodshed and the dying kings. And basically what it came down to is there were king after king after king who did evil things, and each one died in their own way. And most of the time it was in a bloody way. I kind of picture these kings and they're going through their lifetime and they're just kind of looking over their back the entire time, just worried about who's going to jump out from what corner to kill them. Can you imagine living your life this way? Well, this was all following King David. See, the 1st and 2nd Kings starts with David's son Solomon. But it wasn't much different for David, was it? I mean, he still had to deal with this same Saul and then Absalom now that we've been talking about, wanting to kill him. He had to deal with the same fact that people wanted to kill him. But in Psalm 23:5, David writes, "You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows." You know, up until this point, David's been talking about God as a shepherd. But now he's talking about God as a host. When we go to somebody's house, we often bring a gift of thanks for having us over. But in biblical Israel, the host had some responsibilities. They had to make sure that the place to eat, that their home was safe for the person coming over. They would anoint the person's head with oil that had perfumes in it. And they would make sure that there was plenty of food and drink. If there wasn't, it was extremely disgraceful. So David says that God gets a table ready for him in the presence of his enemies. And I really like that because we think these kings that were all over in 1st and 2nd Kings that were so afraid of their enemies and what was going to happen to them because they were going to die. But David trusts God enough that he says, "You set this table for me in the presence of my enemies." David can sit there and he can eat dinner even though his enemies are there. He has that much confidence and peace in God. You know, it almost seems like 2020 is our enemy. It keeps hitting us over and over and over. We're facing the possibility of more shutdowns. We have elections that we don't even know the outcome of yet because one side says there's fraud, the other side says there isn't, and everybody's fighting over it. Kids just got to go back to school, but who knows what that's going to look like. It's awfully different right now. You know, we don't really know what the rest of this year is going to bring, but we can still have comfort in God. You know, the last line of verse 5 says, "My cup overflows." You know, Jesus talked to another woman about overflowing. In John 4, he talks to a Samaritan woman. And now Samaritans and Jews don't like each other. And so she's a little shocked that Jesus would talk to her. And she's, one, shocked that she's a Samaritan and he's a Jew, and so he shouldn't be talking to her. But two, she's shocked that he's a guy and she's a lady and he's talking to her. And that would be a big old scandalous thing in that. But she was also there in the middle of the day, and that tells us that she was going when nobody else would be there, and she probably didn't want to be seen. So Jesus asks her for a drink of water, and she's really confused that he would ask that because he shouldn't be talking to her in the first place. But when she questions him, he tells her that, you know, she's talking about one kind of water, but if she knew who she was talking to, she'd be asking him for living water. And Jesus says to her in verse 13 and 14, he says, Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. No more thirst. A bubbling spring kind of sounds overflowing to me. You know, I think about this time that I was at a restaurant, and they had one of those pop machines where you go and you get your own pop out of it, but you got to put it in the size of cup that you're going to use. And I pressed the wrong button. I pressed the one for the large, and I had a small, and so it gets to the top of the cup, and it starts overflowing all over the place, and I'm sticking my mouth underneath it, and I'm trying to catch as much pop as I can, and it just keeps spilling all over, and I'm swallowing it as fast as I can, but I can't get enough, and it just keeps coming and coming and coming. You know, David, he understood that there was something important about God and what he did for him, and Jesus is telling this woman the same thing, that there's nothing in life that will ever be good enough. There's nothing in life that can ever take care of you enough. There's nothing in life that is enough to bring you peace, to bring you comfort, to take care of you in the hard situations in life. The only thing that does that is Jesus himself. See, when we put our faith in Jesus Christ, when we turn to Jesus, he's like that pop machine, just pouring and pouring and pouring, and it doesn't stop, and that flow just keeps coming. And we can't get enough. But even though we can't get enough, it'll never stop. It's always flowing. The love of Jesus is pouring out for us. So today I want to encourage you to turn to him in prayer. Turn to his word. Spend time dwelling in the love that he has for you. Drink from his living water, and your cup will overflow.